Investing in yourself is always going to be the absolute best way to make it forward.
Recognizing that money spent growing yourself, whether it's going to a conference or buying a book, is going to be a non-tangible investment, but is going to be much more valuable than simply just investing in a stock. What is going to return more, the S&P or your skills? And we are now firmly in the camp of your skills are going to return more.
If you are in any kind of business for yourself, you need to have somebody that does tax planning, not just tax preparation for you. We should always be looking for a way for growth to enhance our income producing ability. The more skills and the more network and the more you increase your human value, the more that you are going to be secure in having a job. What are your dreams? And we can start talking about that and then start to build a roadmap to that. Cut out toxicity from your life. There is addition by subtraction. Even if it's family, you can limit and you can create strong boundaries. Don't allow people in your life that are going to suck the energy out of you. If I'm around people that just want to bitch and moan all day, well, guess what ends up processing through my mind? Things to bitch and moan about. Hey, welcome back for another episode, Remnant Finance Podcast. Brian here with my co-host, Hans Hawk Tui. I was thinking recently, if you were just at your first squadron, you 100% would have the call sign Hawk based on that Goofy Girls stupid video that's going viral. And it would be funny, but it would suck to have that for the rest of your naval career.
Yeah, absolutely. I have that picture inside my helmet. Every time I would go to the peril off, somebody would throw that picture in there. That's a ridiculous reflection of the country, the state of the nation right now.
It's not even just so ridiculous that she said that in this interview. It's ridiculous that it's been grasped and gone viral, and she's on stages and making buku bucks, I'm sure, at this point because of spitting on that thing. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I heard that there was potentially a podcast.
I got to wonder what she has to talk about.
Yeah. Hey, well, good for her. If that's the direction of American energy and attention right now, I guess you capitalize in a free market, but it's a good wake-up call for values we need to reestablish as a nation.
It's going to take some painful experiences.
I think it's like a lot of dead wood needs to burn is kind of a good way to summarize the only real solution here.
But on the bright side of that, besides the fact that, she's probably making a lot of money, is you can think that she's doing that. She's making that money with her number one asset, which was herself and her brain. She isn't inhibited like we were for most of our military careers by time, by rank, by position, by the commander that makes decisions on when you get promoted and things. She literally used her number one asset value, which is herself, and capitalized upon that with no ceiling. So that's kind of a cool thing, and it's a big thing in the direction that we're moving.
It's a very interesting mindset shift to go from employee to employer, and having been in the Navy since 18, myself starting in ROTC and then commissioning and doing the whole aviation pipeline, capped, and there's also a floor on your income, and those are the same number. The best pilot makes the same as the worst pilot, and it's really, really hard to fail out. To not make it to 20 years is pretty difficult to get that pension, and so it's a path that there's so many roads to travel that'll get you to this guaranteed income, and that is the carrot at the end of the stick. It's why people stay and do the job. I remember when I was on the ship on my punishment tour for refusing the unlawful order, I would look around and everyone was miserable. The ship was always broken. And I thought, if it wasn't for the pension, this crew would be 90% of its current manning unless they probably quadrupled pay.
90% or 10%?
Sorry, 90% of the people I was looking at would not be there.
I mean, it's like, you have to do so many stupid things in the military too, beyond the fact that you can't get ahead, but based on your merit, but you also just have to do absolutely stupid things that the government feels is necessary based on their own DEI criteria and their own fake sexual assault prevention that doesn't work. Yeah, it actually makes it miserable, but it's wild. Like you said, you can coast your way to 20 years. I mean, it's actually laughable to me that I was able to sue the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of the Air Force, as a named plaintiff on the front page of a federal lawsuit, not do my professional military education, and still get promoted. Like, you literally just have to be able to fog a mirror in 2024 to make it to 20 years and get your guaranteed pension. I get that. That's not a bad thing, but I don't think it is great for the human spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. And you realize psychologically when you know that no matter how well you do, you're going to be paid the same, you're going to be rewarded the same, at least financially. It creates a different incentive structure than you would otherwise have. And you get rewarded based on performance, on potentially orders that you get, assignments, qualifications you get, et cetera. There is some non-financial incentives, but if we're focusing on the financial side, which is what we want to talk about today, there really is no incentive to do anything better or worse than anyone else.
Except the next promotion. That's the one thing. If you check the right boxes and rub the right elbows, you can make it to the next rank, especially at a certain point. It's easy to cap out at a really comfortable place and ride to 20. And the only thing that incentivizes you to do more is to get more and more rank. But I think at a certain point, you end up, almost everybody I know who's achieved those higher level ranks is selling their soul to the government. So it comes at a cost, and it comes at a cost to that person.
Yeah, as we know, there was a total, you can count them on 0 fingers, flag officers, which is admirals and generals, who stood up to the illegal mandate. Every single one of them, to a man, I'll use that term loosely, caved and didn't want to rock the boat. And most 06s were in the same boat. I can name a couple that were really solid and held out, upheld their oaths, but most of them said, you're on your own. I personally had several say, hey, I'm here if you need to talk. Sorry you're going through this, but this isn't my hill to die on. And I said, well, if defending your people when they're being illegally targeted, they found me in breach of contract without due process. Like the whole story that we talked about in my bio episode, I kind of breezed through details, but like what was happening was illegal. And then the resulting fallout was also illegal and is going to go to a court case where I'm going to beat them like a wet dog. And I would be sitting with my boss and he would say, if you need to vent, I'm here, but this isn't my hill to die on. And I said, well, what exactly is your hill to die on? If I'm showing you and you're agreeing when I'm showing these documents that what's happening is illegal and that what's happening to me is illegal and I'm proving it and the JAGs agree with me, that's not your hill to die on. And it was a very eye-opening, like nobody's coming to save you. Like you're on your own in a sense of like, you can't be a victim. So I'm not a victim of any of that. And I wouldn't change any of it because this is way more fulfilling and gratifying. It was just an eye-opening experience to realize that, we hear honor, courage, commitment. We hear all these values that they talk about. And in truth, it's all bullshit. They don't matter the second that your career or a senior officer's career or pension is on the line. That goes out the window instantly.
100%. Yeah. I always say like, because I came up in a guard unit and they always preach this thing that we're family here. And I will give the units credit because, when you go into a guard unit different than what you had, Hans, is you might serve, like I enlisted there during my 3rd year of college. So I have 22 years in that unit and all 22 years with some of the same people. Like you don't really experience that on active duty. So you do get some really deep friendships. And I will give them credit when they say that you were a family that in a time of need, somebody's spouse passes away or something bad happens in somebody's life, they will come to your aid and help you and do what they can to assist you. But it is the exact same story. You are family as long as their butt is not on the line to protect you, even if you're facing something that is unjust to the member or an illegal mandate or something like that. So you can't ever play victim. And I teach my kids that all the time because it's a natural thing for kids. They have to learn that is to not have a victim mentality, because they still want to play by this natural sense of fairness. And what we've realized and over years, obviously, but is what I mentioned in the very beginning of this, talking about the Hawk Tuohy girl, is that you are your number one asset. And if you're outside of that government world, which absolutely sucks, and I don't want to ever step back into, at least on a full-time basis until I retire. If you step outside of that world like that, investing in yourself is always going to be the absolute best way to make it forward. And that even is true in a corporate job, I think, because you can always find another skill, another way, another mentorship, another network to improve your life and move forward. So no matter what you do, we think the first thing you should do is probably take 10% or more of what you earn and find a way to invest that back in yourself. This is especially true, folks, if you're in your 20s and just starting out and everybody's telling you to get market returns and put your money in the S&P indexes to try to hope you get 10% or 12% per year. You can more easily double your income by investing in yourself. What are some ways, Hans, that we're investing in ourselves or other people can invest in themselves?
This to me is just a whole new, the idea of spending a good amount of money on personal development that doesn't directly translate to a return is a foreign concept to me as an employee. And so it took me kind of shaking those chains off to realize that like if I invest in myself, the return will be much greater than just trying to make some money work. We talk about people at work versus money at work. So the people at work aspect, and it gets back to our human life value, our economic life value. How we improve that is much more important than our rate of return. And so some of the ways is we're both in a mastermind group where we're with other people doing generally the same field. And so we're learning from each other how to best help clients, how to bring up these questions that make them inspired to explore their own situation rather than just relying on experts. And we have a great mentor, Trent Fortner, that we work with, who has been helping us kind of develop how we frame these problems to help people see it for themselves. Events, conferences, just being willing to learn, being willing to reevaluate prior assumptions, and recognizing that money spent growing yourself, whether it's going to a conference or buying a book, is going to be a non-tangible investment as far as the way that we think about it, but is going to be much more valuable than simply just investing in a stock or something.
Oh yeah, and investing in other people as well. I mean, we're talking about investing in ourselves there, but think about the who not how aspect, like Dan Sullivan's book. One thing that is hard to wrap your mind around when you're like an hourly employee or a salaried employee is that you can benefit by handing tasks over to somebody else. It is so easy to think, I actually do still cut my grass because we like to do it. But for example, let's say that you have a few acres that you need to cut and it takes you a few hours. If you can pay somebody less than what you make per hour doing what you do to earn an income, does that make sense? A lot of people have trouble sending that money away, but you're getting your time back and you're able to increase your income based on doing that. So there's so many different ways to think about the world in that way. But you said something that made me think about other people like that. But yeah, investing in yourselves, it's been an absolute game changer. I'm in a couple masterminds, as a matter of fact. I think I'm in a total of 3 right now, all of which I gained some kind of valuable experience from. We are in a marketing organization that helps us with all the back end work and all the platforms. And the very first website I did when it was still Perennial Wealth Concepts and I was on my own, I don't know, over 4 years ago, I built the very first iteration of that website myself. And I was able to do it because it was 2020 and I had some time. I was home a lot. That is just not the best use of my time. So hiring a marketing team who helps us with that website and teaches us better ways to market and teaches us better ways to message and build our own platform so that we can better serve our customers frees up that time to serve our clients better. And so it is still a self-investment, even though we're farming a lot of that work out to somebody else. But man, I think back to, let's say, being 22, 23 years old. Would you have ever hired a business coach, to help you do something? Would you have hired a fitness coach at 23 years old?
No, absolutely not. I mean, at 33 years old, I wouldn't.
Tom Brady had a quarterback coach all the way up until he retired. There was arguably not a single better quarterback that has ever played the game. And yet he was still getting coached by somebody that never won as many Super Bowls as him, never had as many MVPs as him, but they could see it from the outside. So we have a friend, Brandon, who he always says, and I like his saying, he says, if you're inside the jar of jelly, you can't read the label. And so that outside perspective really helps you, somebody else, even if they may not have the same experience, like those quarterback coaches are nowhere near as good and experienced as Tom Brady, but they can see it from a different perspective he can't. And that helped him grow. And that helped him win 7 Super Bowls. Because without that experience and without that background and the team around him, there's no way he could have done it.
Comparing it back to the investment, which again, everyone, whether it's IBC or anything else you do with your money, people always just say, well, I can make more money doing X, Y, Z. It's always a comparison and it's always about a rate of return. But to sum that all up, what is going to return more, the S&P or your skills? And we are now firmly in the camp of your skills are going to return more. Investments you make in yourself and in your team are going to return more. I had never done anything but TurboTax when I was filing my taxes for my entire career because it didn't really matter, because nothing really changed, because no matter how good I did as a pilot, it didn't matter. When I started working with you, the first 2022, when I had income other than my Navy W-2 income, I was using QuickBooks. I upgraded to QuickBooks, which was actually an accounting software, and I was categorizing expenses, and I got to deduct some of my expenses against income. It wasn't until maybe halfway through last year that we partnered up or we invested in our business and got an actual no kidding tax team. And so I looked at the price tag of that and I called you up and I was like, dude, you're crazy. I'm doing taxes just fine. I even got a small return last year. I looked into it and long story short, we are now working with them. They've restructured. I now have a new entity type. They have infinitely more knowledge than I do about tax things. I was on a call with them yesterday and they're asking me these questions. I don't know the answers to any of them because I didn't even know that these questions were questions. The things you don't know. Well, for me, most of the tax stuff was things I didn't know that I didn't know. And I'm learning that stuff continuously. If I look at what they saved me in taxes just by making some basic logical plays that would have taken me a long, long time to stumble my way through and figure out, they've returned probably 5 times their cost to me in my total expenditure. It's weird to wrap your mind around, like, I paid them for tax services and then I still paid a tax bill. But compared to what it would have been had I done it myself, the number that I had originally gotten, they were able to do a lot of things to improve my situation. And now I'm paying much, much less. And it's a weird way to think about it. It's foreign to me 5 years ago, paying someone to do a service to lower a payment I make to someone else. Like, that's just not how I would naturally think. But that is an investment in and of itself. And realizing now the value of having someone else do our website, do our podcast, do our taxes much better than we could do. I could spend 10 hours and not format this podcast the way that our team can do it. And so it's worth that investment for our time.
Yeah, absolutely. Our unique value is not in podcast editing. It's not in tax preparation or tax planning. Although what I love about the tax planning and the way they help us actually do that. And by the way, folks, if you are in any kind of business for yourself, you need to have somebody that does tax planning, not just tax preparation for you. It's going to probably save you over the course of your life tens, hundreds, if not millions of dollars, tens or hundreds of thousands over the course of your life by having somebody actually plan ahead. It's imperative that you do that, especially as a business owner. As a W-2 income, your guardrails are a little tighter and you're going to get taxed at the highest level. That's just an unfortunate case. That's like what there was that famous example a few presidential cycles back where they kept bringing up that Warren Buffett's secretary paid more in taxes than he did. And that's because she made a wage and there was nothing she could do to reduce that tax load. And it was as a percentage. It wasn't a whole dollar amount. That was a stupid spin of the Democratic cycle. It was not by dollar amount. It was simply by percentage of income. But there's nothing else she could do to write that down. If you're a business owner, you're going to have the most flexibility in the tax code. And actually what's cool though is by paying that expert who then teaches and coaches us and helps us build the plan, because he can give us the roadmap, but we still have, or she can, that we work with two, a he and a she there. They give us a roadmap, but we still have to drive on it and we still have to do some of the work to make it happen and to prepare ourselves for those eventualities. And it's awesome because it changes the way you think about everything. And that's the key, is like every time you invest more money in yourself, every time you get some coaching, every time you learn some new skill, read a new book, you are increasing the level from which you think. And you're always changing the way you think. You now are starting from a different place. So you're able to see things differently. Your whole paradigm shifts every time you add one of those skills or a new layer of growth.
Yeah. And going back to the employer versus employee mindset, that's been very palpable for me recently. I'm 24 days into being a civilian, and I knew this day was coming, where my last day in the Navy, last day of having the safety net of income. And I am the textbook example of, no matter how you do in the Navy, you get paid the same, because in the Navy's infinite wisdom, they benched me from flying for 3 years. They paid me 3 years full salary, and never once did I fly a single hour. They bounced me around the country to various made up or pointless jobs. I sat at a desk in San Diego, in Kingsville, Texas. And essentially I sat at a desk on a ship in Virginia with no job to speak of, because of their maladministration and the unlawful order and the crime that they perpetrated on the force. But they still paid me the whole time. And so I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if my flying career was over for good, but I knew that I didn't want to waste that time that I had. It was awesome because I was a stay-at-home dad getting full salary, and that was cool. But like, I didn't want to come out of that experience not having gained a skill. And that's when I started looking into this, started working with you. And so I made that a very productive 3 years of being paid to not do my job, but I was still paid to not fly a single mission, which is what they spend millions of dollars training me to do. And I knew that June 30th was going to come and I was going to lose that income and that safety net. And I prepared for that. But now I'm actually there, and it's a weird feeling, because now my ability to support my family, to support the lifestyle we want, is all based on my brain. You know, it's my investments in myself that are paying returns. It's my ability to communicate this concept that we are excited about and want to help people set up. It's my ability to continuously learn and understand and improve my knowledge of what I'm talking about, so that I can best represent what we're trying to do to our clients. It's very freeing and also very nerve-wracking, because for the first time, I have no upper cap. I can make as much as I am able to, but I can make zero. It's strange when you go from employer to employee mindset, but it's powerful to recognize that you have the ability to be your best asset. And your mind and your improvement, the investments that you make in learning and growing as a professional, can pay tangible benefits. And it's a way that you just can't really wrap your mind around when you're not actively doing it.
I think what's even cool beyond that is how that's going to generationally transfer. I think back to when I was growing up, and grandparents, at least on my dad's side, they were born in coal mining towns and on a farm, and they moved to Pittsburgh to work in the mills. So it was the standard hourly rate, hourly employee who isn't probably doing anything to increase those skills and increase their human value. And that translates, to the next generation. And my dad and his siblings' generations, they were all in the employee mindset, which is fine, by the way, to be an employee, but we should always be looking for a way for growth to enhance our abilities or enhance our income producing ability or have more peace of mind, I think, because the more skills and the more network and the more you increase your human value, the more that you are going to be secure in having a job and moving up whatever ladder it is that's in front of you. But I think that next generation was kind of the stagnant. And I remember being told, because I went to school to be a teacher, I remember being told by multiple people in my family that it's a great move to be a teacher because, well, summer's off and I'll have a pension and I'll have great benefits and all of those basic things. But that was the exact same model when I was a school teacher as the military. Like, here's your contract. Here's what you're going to make. It didn't matter that 2 doors down, the idiot running that classroom couldn't control 2 kids, let alone 20, and they couldn't explain their concepts. Just an absolute terrible teacher. The teacher next door to them is doing a phenomenal job impacting children, really delivering good value in the classroom. They're making the exact same money or less because they simply have been there 1 year less. So anyway, that was like the mindset was simply just go in there and take the secure job. So now that I've transitioned, just like you have, and I have a little bit more entrepreneurial stuff, like I used to own a landscaping company right out of high school and have had some properties and things, and then started doing this business a few years back. That's going to transfer to my kids. So no longer will my kids here take the safety route, because I actually think that's the most unsafe route in 2024 is to lock yourself into a job at some corporation where you're just, punching the card, so to speak, which nobody does anymore, but getting your 8 hours in a day, hoping for some overtime and hoping you don't get laid off. I think that's actually the most precarious position you can put yourself in as an adult and as a provider, because there's no backstop.
Yeah, something we ask clients a lot is what their strategy is after we determine their goals. And we want granular goals. We want specific goals within a specific timeline so we have something to work for. When we have those goals, many come to the table without even having those goals defined. Well, eventually I want to stop working. I'd like to have some passive income. I want to just have a chill life at a certain point. Those are aspirations, I guess. They're not goals because they're not measurable. So we spend some time working on measurable goals. And then we say, all right, what's our strategy to get there? What strategy do you currently have in place to get to those goals? And if they do have goals, if they actually have defined goals, what is the strategy? And it's kind of a pause. And much more often than not, and myself included, previous to implementing IBC, there's no strategy. It was just, well, I'm investing and I hope it works and I hope it's enough. The questions that we ask, what are your goals? What's your strategy to get there? And then how confident are you that your strategy will succeed no matter what happens in the market, no matter what happens in the political arena, et cetera? Most of those questions were 0 for 3 when we come to the table. And I certainly was as well, especially the third one. Could we poke any holes in this strategy you have, if you have one, that would topple the whole thing? And almost always the answer is yes. Coming to this idea and rethinking your thinking and actually putting some meat on the bones of these goals and talking through the strategies is something that comes with taking ownership and recognizing that it's on you. Nobody cares about your financial success. No one cares about your posterity, the health and happiness of your children, of your grandchildren, more than you do. No outside institution is going to be there to save you. And so you need to learn this. You need to invest in yourself. If you're someone who's looking to implement IBC, you need to understand the concepts that we're trying to convey. You need to understand the process. You should have your own working knowledge of this process. We'll help you get there with teaching and with implementing and setting up and actually getting the policies in force, et cetera, and coach you through using it. We're always here to help talk through it and help you implement it, but you need to ultimately become your own banker. And just that title of the book alone, of Nelson Nash's book, Becoming, it's an action verb, right? It's something we actually need to do. So investing in yourself, becoming your own banker, it's this continuous process of learning and improving, whether that's your knowledge of what we're trying to do, or whether that's increasing your skill set so that you can increase your human life value, what you bring to your family. If you don't have tangible goals defined, if you don't know your strategy to get to those goals, or if you know those two things, if you're not confident that it can withstand any market condition, it's worth investing in yourself to gain that knowledge and ensure that that plan you have, that vision you have, knowing it's on you, that it will be there for your children and your children's children.
And like you mentioned, a lot of people don't even have a clearly defined, say, goal. But I even think a better way to think about that is, what are your dreams? Goals aren't really something worth getting out of bed for. What are your dreams? And we can start talking about that and then start to build a roadmap to that. I don't know what that roadmap is. necessarily, because everybody's going to be a little bit different, but it's okay to not really know what that is or to have been floating. I mean, we'll start wherever you're at. And that's the cool thing about this is you just have to start. It's the old story of the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, or however I butchered that. But 10,000 miles, I think they say, right? Journey of 10,000 miles. But we need to have a place that we're actually going. And then how we get there is going to vary. And to think about that, what are your hopes? And what were your hopes and dreams when you were 20? What are your hopes and dreams when you're 40 or wherever you happen to be at this time? And have you actually enacted something that's going to get you there? And have you actually thought about whether what you've enacted is going to do the job and is going to be secure in that? And we'll help you with that discussion.
I had a recent call with a guy who wanted to learn this stuff, but he really needed to just get his financial house in order, needed to get out of some debt that was just keeping him from really making any forward progress. He wasn't yet a potential candidate for IBC based on his current spending, his current habits, his current mindset. We started talking through some stuff. And one thing I asked him, you're making your salary, how much can you trim from that salary? Even if you were aggressive and lived like a monk, how much could you trim from the salary? 10, 20%, 30%? But I said, what are your skills? Like, what do you do for money? And he told me that he was in computer programmer, IT, et cetera. And I was like, well, next time we talk, can you just think of something that you could do to make an extra $10,000 by the end of the year? And that might sound like a lot of money, but if you think about breaking it up into months or weeks, can you go on Fiverr and outsource your skills? Can you, even if it's going around and mowing lawns, whatever it is, how much money do you need to make each week by using the skills that you have to do things that people don't want to do or can't do? I said, can you make $10,000 additional by the end of 2024? And he started thinking and he got pretty excited. And he's like, I think that's very doable, even though that was probably 15% of his current salary. I said, you could spend a lot of time trying to live meagerly and trim 15%, but why not make 15% more? Just think about it that way. And so we got pretty excited. And next time we talk, he's going to walk through his plan to make an extra $10,000. I said, if you can do that by the end of 2024, then you'll be in a much better mental place and you'll have a lot more confidence in your asset, your ability to produce, that you can get in a place much quicker where you can do IBC and where you'll be ready to do this. Right now, I just don't think giving you this tool might be detrimental because of your spending habits, because of your mindset. But it was really cool to kind of see the light bulbs come on that I could add something pretty easily given my skill set. And so it's a fun way to think about it. And it's a lot more empowering to think that way than it is to just think that I'm stuck where I'm at. This is the salary I make. All I can do is trim down and save that way. But, why not start with trying to grow and expand?
And like we said before, when you grow there, that becomes your new baseline.
Even if you just mow 50 lawns and you only make 4,000, that's still more. Just think like a business owner. Think like the most important thing that you have is your time, your knowledge, and your skill set. And how do you hone those rather than trying to trim down a budget, which of course you should do if you can't get your spending under control. That's certainly an integral part, but let's focus on growth and expansion.
And the only way that expansion stagnates is if you let it. When I was a senior in high school, that's when we started the lawn care company. I was cutting 5 lawns in my neighborhood, and my best friend at the time was cutting 5 lawns somewhere else. And we just said, hey, let's put these together. And we grew that to 17 lawns that first summer, and we grew it to 35 lawns the next summer and 70 some lawns the next summer. But by that third summer, we started getting landscaping jobs. People were like, hey, do you guys do this? Can we do this? It starts off with mulching because we can cut an edge and mulch. That didn't really take much. But then when they started asking you to design, my partner in that business, I left due to college and military stuff and I sold my half to him. But he started getting mentorships. He started getting coaching. He started helping other people and learning more in the design. And it was just, wow, grass cutting turned into mostly landscaping, which was more productive and paid more, which turned into him now owning a pretty large supply yard where he doesn't do any of that type of physical labor anymore outside of what he has to do at the shop. So my point in that is once you're going to hit a new baseline. So like you're talking about mowing grasses, but if you know how to see and capture for future opportunities, that will always expand, rotate, and change. And all that change should be growth oriented. The other thing that I think, Hans, you really hit on there that is, I'm just tying this all back, is that you talked about having this discussion with him and him not being able to see what he's done and see how to get out of it. So he's inside the jar of jelly and you were on the outside reading the label. We talked a little bit about Tom Brady. And what did he hire? He hired a coach. What were you just doing to help him see something different and maybe give him a new pivot point? You were coaching. So that's what we do. We work as a coach. We are a financial coach for many people in that, like, what do I do next? How do I position this? Where am I and how do I get out of it? It's really, really, really hard to answer those questions from within. You are in your own jar of jelly.
As we've learned and grown, I've learned the value of having a trust in place. through getting into this business. I never could have told you the first thing about a trust prior to starting this. And I'm not an expert in trust, but I now have one, and I now know where to refer people that want to get one, which is you, because you're now trained to do it. We both have trust through the same company. It's a great way to shore up your foundation, which is something, the protection layer, which we're passionate about when we work with clients. Expanding my skill set on the IBC world on the insurance front has led to learning more about these other things that our clients come to us and ask about. I want to get into some passive income opportunities. How can I get into XYZ? And we might not know it, but because we've gone through coaching, because we've gone to events, we have a network where people do these things, and we can connect people and have a symbiotic working relationship with people that specialize in other areas. No one would have asked me, how do I set up a trust 2 years ago, 3 years ago? No one would have even thought to ask me that. And now we've probably had 10 people that have asked me that in the last year, maybe in the last 6 months. And I now know where to go. And so it's not that I'm going to become an expert in trust law. You have gotten some qualifications and training to be able to talk through it and help set it up. You're still not an estate planning attorney, but we know who those people are now, and we can point you in the right direction. So it's all expanding that personal capital beyond just your skill set, your network, your education, et cetera.
Yeah, just to be clear there, I cannot write you a trust, but I can help work on the coordination level to help you get set up and move the information between the folks who are properly trained to do that, the attorneys, and you and me, and do it at a nice cost and get you a nice secured up place to do it. I think to sum everything up, it requires a coach, it requires an expansion, it requires an investment in yourself is what it's going to take for growth, how that's going to help us generationally, now, future, in every way. And everybody around you. I mean, has your network been changing?
Yeah, absolutely. The people that I talk to on a daily basis right now, I'd say there's two constants, or we'll say weekly basis, but there's two constants from my previous life as a pilot to now. I didn't know you 4 years ago. I obviously didn't know any of our clients because I didn't have any clients because I didn't have a business. But yeah, everything is different now, and everything is more geared towards expansion, protection, and continuing to develop as a professional so that I'm able to best serve clients in a broad range of needs, even if that's pointing them elsewhere. I think that mindset of seeing a hefty price tag on some self-development training and realizing that this is true value and it's going to pay dividends either now or down the road it's a mindset shift from employee to employer. It's worth remembering and focusing on the fact that it's on you. Nobody cares more than you do about your family's economic future. You need to do this yourself, and we want to help you get there.
I think one final thing, just as a piece of advice to anybody listening here, is cut out toxicity from your life. There is addition by subtraction. It is okay, even if it's family. I'm not saying you have to disown family, but you can limit and you can create strong boundaries. Don't allow people in your life that are going to suck the energy out of you. If you have an energy vampire, get rid of them. You can't succeed and propel your life forward with an energy vampire hanging onto your neck all the time. Get rid of that person. Jim Rohn famously said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. The crazy thing is, you don't have to limit that. Like Hans and I met, he was in Coronado and I'm in Pittsburgh. Those are the places, for the most part, with the exception of your stupid Navy assignments. We've been in those 2 places this whole time. We met online. And it's completely changed our lives and our networks. Half of my friends I've met online through the IBC world, and then I get to meet them at these events. And these are the people that are thinking in a broader way, that are changing the way I think, and that are helping me expand my life. Because if I'm around people that just want to bitch and moan all day, well, guess what ends up processing through my mind? Things to bitch and moan about. And if I'm around people that just want to talk politics all day, although I do have to say, in the last week, it's been pretty interesting to pay attention to politics. As we're recording this, we're a week after the Trump attempted assassination, the Joe Biden disappearing act and fake letter saying, or whatever's going on there with him not running, and all this stuff is happening right now. So I have to admit, I've been a little tied into it because it's interesting. But if all I did was spend my time around people that just want to bitch about politics, like that sucks you in and it never makes your life better.
It's a little enjoyable right now to kind of rubberneck. We're watching this just catastrophic highway crash on the Democrat Party, and we're kind of slowing down, even though neither of us really are that vested in politics, kind of just view it as theater. But I am kind of slowing down on the highway and like, damn, that looks, whew.
Yeah. Twitter, or X now, has been an absolute blast to scroll through for the last couple days. I've been having fun looking at that and probably spending a little bit too much time on it, but all the shit going on, man, it's a wild time. And so that's been fun. But like, I couldn't imagine, you know, in the months to come, like letting this consume my life, because that's exactly what we'll do. And if you're around people that just, you know, suck, get rid of them. You can still love them. Even if they're related to you and their family, like find a way to stiff arm that person, you know. They can go somewhere else and bring somebody else's life down. If you want to move ahead, cut the chaff.
Yeah, that's powerful. It's necessary.
All right, man. And if you do all that and invest the first 10% of your money into self-development, cut the chaff, get a coach, hire us, we'll help you on the financial side, you can get out of the passenger seat of your financial life. And I can't remember where you end up, Hans. Where do you end up?
In the cockpit.
That's right. All right, man.
All right. See y'all next week. Cheers.
Yep. Take care.